Hey, all you literary legends luminaries. I'm Julie, and welcome to another episode of Write Smart. Today we're talking about a memoir by Lauren Christensen titled Firstborn. Okay, so I need to be upfront about how I, as a reader, affected the reading of this book. It was a very, very, very rough school year. I started this book only 3 days before the end of the school year was done. So I was busy doing other things and very frothy, very frustrated. This book should have only taken me a week or less to read. It took me over 2 weeks. I even read a Marilyn Monroe book in the middle of Firstborn, which I usually don't do. With all my stress and distractions, it was difficult to engage with the first part of the book, so I take full responsibility for that. So Firstborn is about Christensen's miscarriage of her daughter Simone. They find out that the baby has a condition that causes fluid to build up in the womb, and Christensen delivers Simone at only about 21 or 22 weeks, and the baby is already dead when she delivers it. It's a gut-wrenching story, but, and there is a but here. First, let me say that this is in no way any sort of criticism or critique of Christensen's experiences. I am not and will never minimize anyone else's experience or how they felt about what happened to them. My criticism stems from the way in which Christensen told her story. And remember, when I started reading her memoir, I myself was not the most dedicated, engaged, or even diligent reader. So, here's two main problems that I had with the book, especially the first half when I wasn't all that engaged with it in the first place. So the first one is Christensen spends quite a bit of space on the death of her grandfather. This in itself is an incredibly important story, but did it really connect with Simone's story? And so within the story of Simone, I kind of felt like her grandfather's death overpowered it at times, especially the pacing at the beginning. I felt that the story of her grandfather was important enough to make it its own memoir, but it might have just been the way she wrote about it that I had the problem with. So here's the second problem. Firstborn is written as if the audience of the book is really just meant to be friends and family. There are so many names, so many tedious details, even all the phone calls she makes and who texts what back and forth. The general reader has absolutely no use for such information. In fact, it's irritating because I felt when I was reading it as though I'm supposed to know who these people are, but I don't. And that I should care about who these people are, but I don't. There's 2.5 pages just alone on this sort of pre-wedding party. I don't know if you want to call it a bachelorette party because it wasn't really, but there was this gift box being sent around and all the items that people put in there, including the pictures and who's in the picture and what's it of. I almost stopped reading the book at that point. I get it though, because I too overwrite. I describe way too many details, too many pop culture references, too many inside jokes. I've learned over the years to cut them out, which is a very, very painful revision process. But the general reader just doesn't care. Only those that know you will care about those details. And that's who I felt at times the book was written for. All those people that knew her and Simone and knew what happened. I stuck with the book though, which I'm so very glad I did because those tedious details mattered later in the book. Christensen was capturing every piece of Simone's life which never existed outside the womb. The memoir is to chronicle and archive a life that never had a chance to live. I get it. I panic that once my dad dies, the only two people on earth who will know my maternal grandparents will be me and my sister. And then what happens after that? When we're dead, no one will care about my grandparents. I had an uncle who died when he was 8 of scarlet fever, and he died even before my dad was born. So only his older sister knew him. and she's about 90 years old now. So I've become very aware at my own mortality and what that means for those who have came before me. So I completely understand Christensen's need to document her daughter's way too short life, but it was a life and it did matter. And so the morning they find out Simone is dying in the womb, she recounts the songs on the radio, what they ate for breakfast. In fact, Christensen eats a lot in the book and remembers each meal. I get it, and I appreciate the story, even if I think at the beginning some of those tedious details could have been cut. And even if I don't think her grandfather's story needed to take up so much space, I took a quote that he said about how every day is the most exciting day of his life. I even typed that up in pink lettering, and I taped it to the front of my desk so I see it every time I sit at my desk. So there's so much good stuff in this book. Really, there is. Even if I was somewhat irritated with the writing style, especially in the beginning. So I have to read you a paragraph towards the very end so that you can see Christensen's writing style. I like that it's warts and all, and she's not writing the story of Simone like there is some silver lining about her loss and what happened, which I really, really, really appreciate, because I think sometimes we tend to frame our story in that manner. So she's talking about these moments that she never then had with Simone. These moments all belong to what a new, very pregnant friend recently termed my ghost life. It's not that it never got to happen or that I imagined it in my head. It was realer than anything I've ever experienced, and then it died. A lot of things happen to the living, and this is just one of them. Nothing good came out of it, and it didn't happen for any reason. The world does not care what we think about it. By the luck of the draw, I get to keep living, and I know better than to say that's not a miracle. More things will happen to me before I die, and some of them will even be good. None of them will be her. Thanks for watching. As always, my goal at Write Smart is to get a little bit smarter, one book at a time.